de développer vos programmes nucléaires. La dernière demande, c'est que n'agissez pas en fonction des intérêts économiques, des intérêts géopolitiques, mais agissez en fonction de la morale. Parce que je crois tout simplement que la démocratie, c'est une valeur absolue, quels que soient les intérêts. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I think the young lady speaks for many of her generation in the Middle East, and we've been hearing from them actually through those Arab awakening, but we've been discussing a lot of your points, but I think your direct question to Monsieur Giraud is a good one that I personally am interested in. I always wonder what drives these decisions, and you know, we've heard from many, including Dr. Mousavian, that it seems that there's always a pass when it comes to Israel, but not others. What do you think?
This isn't a question, this is a statement.
No, she had a direct question to she said the big nations of the world, what makes them decide to ask Iran, to impose sanctions on Iran, but let others go without any judgment of their plans?
Je ne voudrais pas revenir sur l'histoire de ces dernières décennies sur la non-prolifération et sur le démantèlement progressif des arsenaux nucléaires, sur les politiques qui ont été adoptées par les grands pays que vous citez en matière, par exemple, d'arrêt de leurs essais nucléaires. J'ai pris note de ce que vous avez dit. Raison de plus, m'appuyant sur ce que vous avez dit, pour que les 5 membres permanents du Conseil de sécurité, plus 1, soient déterminés dans une politique visant à ne pas permettre la prolifération nucléaire. Car si un État de la région comme l'Iran se dotait contre les engagements internationaux pris, contre la légalité internationale d'un appareil nucléaire militaire, vous pouvez imaginer les réactions en chaîne d'autres pays qui considéreraient que leur sécurité n'est plus assurée. Et nous avons entendu tout à l'heure ce qu'a dit notre collègue du Koweït, pour se doter eux-mêmes d'un arsenal nucléaire. Donc la non-prolifération et le démantèlement progressif des appareils nucléaires militaires est une politique qui est aujourd'hui celle des grands États.
All right, the gentleman in the front.
Jawad Kardoudi, Institut marocain des relations internationales. Et je voudrais dire que je suis d'accord avec M. Mousavian et M. Abidi lorsqu'ils disent que le problème du nucléaire iranien est un problème beaucoup plus global. Il s'agit en fait des relations entre l'Est et le Moyen-Orient et les pays arabes. Et c'est vrai, comme l'a dit la jeune fille, il y a une politique de 2 poids, 2 mesures. Autant l'Ouest est complaisant vis-à-vis d'Israël dans tout ce qu'elle fait, autant il n'y a aucun encouragement pour résoudre le conflit israélo-palestinien. Et moi je dis aux gens de l'Ouest, aux Américains, aux Français, résolvez, contribuez à résoudre le problème israélo-palestinien et vous verrez que tous les autres problèmes et aussi le problème iranien sera réglé. Mais il faut d'abord changer la politique de l'Ouest qui est de 2 poids, 2 mesures, et c'est à ce moment-là que tous les problèmes, et notamment le problème nucléaire iranien, sera résolu. Merci.
Mr. Al-Faraj, you had something to say?
طبعا نحن جالسون هنا في مدينة طنجة، الهواء جميل ونتناقش عن الأزمة النووية الإيرانية. عندما تكونين في مدينة الكويت أنت تبعدين 6 ساعات عن أي تلوث نووي في محطة بوشهر، 6 ساعات فقط. إذا حدث تلوث سوف يذهب إلى الماء ويأتي باتجاه حركة الموج في الخليج عكس عقارب الساعة، سوف تصل إلى محطة تقطير المياه لمدينة الكويت التي تمون مليونين شخص بالماء العذب، سوف تأتي عبر الهواء بالرياح الشمالية الجنوبية. فإذا المسألة بالنسبة لنا حقيقة environmental، ونحن لا نقبل حتى سقف المفاوضات بالنسبة ل5+1 بالنسبة لإيران، لأن حتى لو قبل المشروع النووي الإيراني السلمي فإن تحفظنا عليه هو حقيقة إبعاد كل هذه المحطات عن مياه الخليج. What I am saying, just for the benefit of my colleagues, is that for us the threat of the Iranian nuclear program, even if it's for peaceful means, is environmental. It is very close to us. Any pollution, just like that happened in Fukushima, it will touch our waters and it will touch our air. And we have to all the Gulf depends on water from the sea, desalination plants. We have 8 desalination plants. The first to be hit is Kuwait City. Of course, the first to be hit by any pollution in Bushehr is western Iran and southern Iraq. But the first major city is Kuwait City, then it will follow all the Saudi cities continuing to the mouth of the Gulf. When you look at the way the Iranian program has been set up, عندما خطط البرنامج النووي الإيراني، إذا ترى الآن مشروع مثلا البرنامج النووي لدولة الإمارات أو للسعودية أو للأردن، فهناك consultation مع الوكالة الدولية للطاقة النووية. As regards the Iranian program, there has never been a consultation in the setting up of the program. In relations between Iran and its Gulf neighbors, they cooperate with us on fighting oil spills. نتعاون في مكافحة التلوث النفطي، ولا يريدون أن يخبرونا بأي شيء عن احتمالات التلوث النووي، ومن ثم هناك شيء مخفي في البرنامج النووي.
I know you gentlemen want to say something. We're gonna get to you, but let me get a few questions in, and then you get the chance to comment. Yes.
My name is Abdel Wahed El-Bied. I am a crude oil trader at Samir, Morocco. It's a refinery in Morocco. So my question to you is, what can be the impact of a military action against Iran on the crude oil prices? What do you think? Thanks.
All right. Who would like to take that question, gentlemen? Okay, go ahead.
أتصور أن طبعا I think the element of an attack or a war, outbreak of war in the Gulf, is that you ought to understand that all Gulf nations are oil producing, including Iran and Iraq and also Yemen, and therefore we already have excess capability on tankers outside the Gulf. Just for the instant period, I mean the direct period related after the attack. There are also now, you have the excess capability of Saudi Arabia, which Saudi Arabia produces 12.5 per day barrel, and it has east-west pipelines. So these are going to really lessen the crisis. The third one is that we already have projects as Gulf states. If you take into consideration that United Arab Emirates, for instance, only sells to Asia. So all the capabilities are also in the direction of Asia and direction of China and India, which are to be first hit by this. I think we ought not to reach the point where there is a necessity for the use of force. We do not want that. We do not want that because of the relationship of our economies to the international economy, not just our relationship to Iran or to the Arab world, but to the whole world.
Dr. Mousavian, I'm going to bring you in here to talk a little bit about the broader consequences of a possible attack on Iran or a war with Iran.
Everyone knows Afghanistan still is unstable. Americans are leading Afghanistan in a mess situation. Iraq is in a very, very difficult situation. Instability is there. Syria is in war. Civil war, sectarian war is very much possible. Definitely a war against Iran would bring a full fire to the whole region. The consequences of war against Iran would be tenfold of consequences U.S. invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. I believe we should not be so much worried about this option, because there is a very good understanding in European capitals and even Washington. Even there is a consensus within Republicans and Democrats in Washington. If I'm wrong, Bob, correct me. War is no option. But following the previous discussion, our problem is not with the P5 behavior toward Israel, which we discussed a little bit. Why Israelis, they have 400 nuclear warheads, and there is no punishment, and they are punishing Iran because Iran doesn't have even one nuclear bomb. The problem is beyond. If the problem is really with non-proliferation, the P5 today, they have over 20,000 nuclear weapons. And they believe Iranian nuclear program is threat to international peace and security, while Iran doesn't have single nuclear weapon. And their own 20,000 nuclear weapons is not threat to international peace and security. The third problem we have, if really the issue is non-proliferation or proliferation, why the P5, they have strategic relations with countries like India and Pakistan, which they are not member of NPT, and they possess hundreds of nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons, they are not member of NPT, and the West has strategic relation with them. And the fourth or the fifth problem we have, the amount of sanctions and pressures on Iran today is more than North Korea. While North Korea withdrew from NPT and tested nuclear bomb, Iran is member of NPT and doesn't have nuclear bomb. The amount of sanctions today on Iran is more than North Korea. Therefore, I believe really the issue is not nuclear bomb or proliferation. The real issue is political issue about Iran and Iran's role. You would see the Iran during the Shah, when Iran was US ally and Western allies. Europeans and Americans, they decided to nuclearize Iran. It was not clerics. The nuclear program was brought to Iran in 1960s by United States of America. The first nuclear facility was built by Americans in 1967, Tehran Research Reactor. Bushehr was built by Germans. We had enrichment consortium with France before revolution. Therefore, the time Iran was the ally of the West, Iran could have nuclear power plant, enrichment. The US proposed Iran to have 23 nuclear power plants within the year 1990. I always say P5 should appreciate Islamic revolution, not to punish. Because if Shah were alive today, Iran would have over 23 nuclear power plants. Iran would have multiple enrichment sites. Iran would have nuclear weapons, because it was clear for the US and for the West that Shah is after nuclear weapon. There is CIA report 1976 to US president, if Shah were alive, Iran would have nuclear weapon by mid-1980s. 33 years after revolution, instead of 23 nuclear power plants, Iran has one. And my brother Sami didn't have problem with Shah 23 nuclear power plant, and has one problem with one nuclear power plant, which is not still completed. Iran doesn't have nuclear bomb, and Iran doesn't have even one enrichment cycle at industrial level. If Shah were alive, Iran would have 10 enrichment sites. Now you are punishing Islamic Republic because Iran has stopped nuclear bomb after revolution. Iran has stopped ambitious nuclear projects of the Shah. These are the real problems we have in Iran about the Western policies.
I think that the West has more problems with Iran, Iran's leadership than the actual facts on the ground. We will get to that. I'm sorry, I know you guys have a lot to to say, and I know the audience has some really good questions, I'm hoping. Let's go ahead. And then we're going to go to you. So don't worry, I'm coming to you. And please try to ask questions. Your comments are great, and I think that makes you a part of the panel, as I suggested in the beginning. Try to keep the commentary short and ask questions. Yes.
Well, I have just a statement to Mr. Mousavian, who just...
Can you tell us who you are first?
My name is Fatma. I'm a student at ISKAE Business School. So you said, sir, that Iran would have 10 enrichment points and 23 nuclear weapons. I think that Iran would be in a state of war right now if it had all these weapons. And I think that all the citizens in Iran would be enslaved by the economy and would be just trying to satisfy the needs of the government, who just wants to be in war and wants to take control. But my question is to Mr. Gard. I think we all know that Romney did a visit to Israel when he discussed that he will be able, if elected, to have a better plan to attack Iran and just diminish their needs and what they're trying to do with the nuclear weapon. And Obama he said that he wasn't strong enough trying to convince Iran to put down their nuclear weapons. So my question is Obama gonna do something about this? Is he gonna change his whole strategy from just sanctions on banks and energy and international trades to something more eradicate, like integrating the military, or just putting an end to all the nuclear program more efficiently, and or would he be afraid of China and Russia for the threats? So this is my question.
So the question is that while it was obvious what Romney would have done, because he made it clear, through his visit to Israel, what his position would be on Israel's position vis-a-vis Iran, we're not sure how Obama is going to behave. And do you have any reading into that?
Well,
especially, I think, on the issue of non-proliferation, because the U.S., has left the treaty, and there are many calls for it to go back and be a member of the non-proliferation treaty.
Yes, well, I would like to underscore the comments made by my colleague from the French Foreign Ministry that non-proliferation is an exceptionally important objective. And to the initial question, President Kennedy was aware that Israel was developing a nuclear weapon, and he strongly opposed it. Not to the extent that we would attack Israel, and Israel successfully developed weapons, but it isn't that they deny they have them. They neither confirm nor deny that they have them. But the point is that the more countries who obtain weapons, the more likely it is that a nuclear war will be triggered. The most dangerous flashpoint, in my view, at the present time is between India and Pakistan. And there was a study done in Washington that should a war break out between them, and should it go to the use of even low-yield nuclear weapons, say 40, 50 Hiroshima-sized bombs, the resultant effect on the environment and the production of crops would be that more than 1 billion people would die. So it is a legitimate objective, I believe, to do what one can to try to limit the number of countries that develop weapons. And one of the concerns about Iran, and I am not at this stage claiming that Iran has decided to build a nuclear weapon. In fact, the Ayatollah has said it is un-Islamic and it wouldn't be considered. I hope that's the case. But the worry is that should Iran develop a weapon, other countries in the region, for reasons of deterrence and defense, may be tempted to do the same. interestingly, shortly after President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, President Lyndon Johnson convened what was called a Blue Ribbon Committee. This led eventually to U.S. support for the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And the conclusion was that if there is an expansion in the number of nuclear powers, even to those states friendly to the United States, it would be a threat, ultimately, to the security of the United States and the security of the world. So you start from where you are, and you hope you can limit the further expansion of nuclear powers because of the danger that that would create, not just for the United States, not just for the countries in the Middle East region, but for the world. Because these weapons are so devastating and the effects so catastrophic that that must be the first priority. And the United States has stated support for a nuclear-free Middle East. But as I said, there is a difficulty politically in the United States not to fully support whatever it is that Israel does. Israel has a highly disproportionate share of political influence in the United States compared to the Jewish population of the United States.
All right, we're gonna go back to the audience, and I know I told you you're next, but because you're a gentleman, you're gonna let the lady just go before you, and then you, because she has the microphone. That's the only reason why she's going before you.
Merci. Je suis Sheradi Jamila, professeur de sociologie à la fac des lettres et des sciences humaines, Oujda. Donc, c'est pas mon intervention. Ma question s'adresse surtout à Monsieur Giraud et à Monsieur Garde. Et je me joins à Monsieur Abidi dans son idée qui dit que la loi internationale, bien sûr, quand elle ne s'applique pas à tous les cas identiques, est-ce que vous ne voyez pas qu'elle devient un mécanisme de sanction et d'inégalité? Est-ce qu'elle soutient vraiment dans ce sens-là la légitimité et les droits des pays? Vous ne pensez pas que aujourd'hui, plus qu'avant, les pays du Nord sont interpellés à repenser et à redéfinir leurs notions sur la sécurité internationale et sur le terrorisme? Merci beaucoup.
Monsieur Giraud.
Je crois que votre question n'aurait de sens si la chronologie de la non-prolifération n'était pas celle que vous savez. Deuxièmement, pour reprendre ce que mon voisin de gauche, M. Gale, a dit dans son intervention liminaire, aujourd'hui, l'ensemble des pays, nucléaires ou non, militaires, considèrent que la prolifération est la pire des choses. Je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, les grands pays nucléaires qui avaient été dotés de l'arme nucléaire avant l'instauration du régime de non-prolifération ont réduit considérablement leurs arsenaux. Le moratoire sur les essais nucléaires a été respecté par le monde. Donc aujourd'hui, il ne s'agit pas d'établir une forme de justice. Qu'est-ce qui est bien, qu'est-ce qui n'est pas bien, qu'est-ce qui est juste, ce qui n'est pas juste. Ce qui est important, c'est le sens du cap, le sens de la direction, qui est la non-prolifération, et la conviction, comme l'a dit mon voisin, que la prolifération est synonyme de danger. Ce n'est pas une question de droit, pas de droit, c'est une question de danger pour l'équilibre et la sécurité internationale. Il y a un régime juridique qui a été adopté, il y a des résolutions du Conseil de sécurité, il y a, je rappelle que le Maroc est actuellement pour 2 ans membre du Conseil de sécurité, donc le Conseil de sécurité est pluriel. Ce ne sont pas uniquement les pays occidentaux, loin s'en faut. Donc aujourd'hui, il y a la conviction que seule la non-prolifération permet d'assurer, au sens de la Charte des Nations Unies, la paix et la sécurité internationale.
Let's go back to questions. Yes.
Merci beaucoup. Ma question s'adresse à M.
Can you
Moussavian.
tell us who you are? first?
Hassan Saoud, je suis consultant. Nous sommes en train de nous focaliser par rapport au nucléaire iranien sur Israël, le pétrole, mais nous avons oublié qu'en face, qu'en filigrane, il y a le confessionnel. Et c'est la question que je veux poser à M. Moussavian. Est-ce que l'Iran, au-delà de l'équilibre de la terreur qu'on veut faire savoir, ne veut pas avoir sa bombe chiite? Vous avez évoqué le Pakistan, peut-être pour ça, parce que nous savons que la révolution iranienne a une propension à l'exportation jusqu'au sud de la Méditerranée. Est-ce que ça ne rentre pas en ligne de compte dans l'intransigeance de votre pays? Et pour M. Giraud, si l'Iran était un pays démocratique, au sens où vous le pensez, où vous le comprenez, est-ce que vous auriez été moins regardant? Merci.
Okay, Dr. Moussavian, you want to start?
I think the best credible reason for Iran not seeking nuclear bomb, either call it Shia or Iran bomb, is the fact during 8 years war, Iraq invaded Iran. Saddam Hussein used chemical weapon against Iranians. Over 100,000 Iranians, they were affected by chemical weapons. Unfortunately, the West provided material and technology for Saddam Hussein to use weapons of mass destruction against Iran. If you want to call it a Sunni bomb against a Shia country, welcome. But Iranian military went to late Ayatollah Khomeini to get permission to reciprocate. He prevented Iranian army to reciprocate by using chemical weapons against Iraqis. The fact during the war, a country used chemical weapons, killing, injuring tens of thousands of Iranians, and the Iranians did not reciprocate, even during the war. This is the most credible reason Iran is not after nuclear bomb.
All right, Mr. Giraud, I want you to keep the question in mind, not answer it now, because I need to take some more questions from the audience, but keep it in mind to answer in a little bit. Let's go back to the audience.
Good morning. Thank you for an interesting discussion. My question is actually for Mr. Gard. I know that my question is kind of naive, but I really want to understand a little bit more the USA or the American opinion about this. You were talking earlier about how dangerous the nuclear weapons were to be, in the possession of many countries. Are you saying that it is all right for countries like Israel and America to have these weapons, but it is simply outrageous for a Muslim country to have such a weapon? And if your answer to my question is yes, and I believe it is, I think that America has proven a long time ago that it can't actually be trusted with these kinds of decisions. And we can simply remember, all of us, what happened in Iraq. You also talked about how many people were dying, would die or would suffer out of these weapons. I think that already a lot of people do die because of these weapons, and we're not using them yet. So, thank you.
Briefly, you think you can be brief? And I mean, let's not ask questions when we know the answers to them. I would beg you, because we don't want to waste the time of the panel, really. I mean, we're coming to an end, and I really want to squeeze in more questions. So what you feel comfortable answering from that?
Article 6 of the Non-Proliferation Treaty requires the nuclear weapons states to negotiate in good faith to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons. In my non-government organization, we have been pressing the administration to make such an announcement. And in his speech shortly after his inauguration, President Obama did state that it would be the goal of the United States to get rid of all nuclear weapons. He said it's probably not likely in his lifetime because of the complexity of the verification that will be necessary. But that's extremely important. Oddly, the first President Bush cut the American stockpile in half, and even the recent Bush administration again cut the stockpile in half. We had 30,000 nuclear weapons at the height of the Cold War. We have 5,000 now. That's too many. We are advocating further reductions. Nevertheless, there is progress toward fulfilling the obligation of Article 6, which is essential to getting the cooperation of the non-nuclear weapons states in the objectives of the non-proliferation regime.
All right, here's what we're going to do. The ones that I pointed out, I want you to ask your questions briefly and quickly. 1, 2, 3, okay? And then we're going to have our concluding remarks. Yes, go ahead, please.
My question will be directed to Mr. Gard. I'm going to go back to a very basic point you've talked about. Here I am. Okay, my question was directed to you, Mr. Gard. You talked during your first intervention about the fact that USA is not negotiating the nuclear issue, but it is trying to look for solutions for that issue. So my question would be that, is the USA negotiating with Israel and Iran, or trying to find solution by itself and then make Iran take that solution? Thank you.
Okay, let's go to your question while you get your microphone. Yes, go ahead. Try now, try. Speak into the microphone. Okay, did you get the mic? You go ahead while we fix this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'll present myself. Is Gilbert. First of all, I thank you for this incredible opportunity to give my question. And my questions, I have only 2 questions. First is about the Israeli Prime Minister in the United Nations meeting. He talked about the red line about the Iranian nuclear centrifuge. Do you believe in the Iranian red line it raised, saying that the Iranians already are reaching the red line? And don't you think with the elections in Israel, some years I think is soon, don't you think the Israeli Prime Minister is not much interested to show the Israelis of how he can be re-elected for another term? And that's why we are seeing actually the attacks in Gaza. He wants to prove that he's one of the Prime Minister we staff from the enemy, and that's why he wants to show the world he can easily attack Iran in case there's any problem for his second mandate. And also, there's a member of the panel talked about the sanctions, that they are not working actually because Iran is not going to comply. But what do you think can be done differently? We know that the economy is already devastated. The inflation is so high, is rocket high. But what do you think we can do differently? President Obama is in his second term. He has no mandate to run for. So what can he do differently to ensure that we solve the issue? Thank you very much.
Okay, your question.
Elkamah Soukaina, étudiante à l'ISCAE. Donc ma question sera adressée à Monsieur Gard et à Monsieur Giraud. Alors, ne pensez-vous pas que la non-représentativité des pays arabes et islamiques dans le Conseil de sécurité, puisque le Maroc est le seul membre non permanent, constitue une certaine impartialité envers ces pays, notamment en ce qui concerne les décisions qui les concernent directement, notamment la question de l'Irak et du conflit israélo-palestinien?
Okay, gentlemen, remember the questions. Please try to answer them as when you get the floor. I want to start with Mr. Abidi and the question right before last when we think of, is Israel, is the Prime Minister of Israel using these opportunities, to gain momentum for re-election? Of course, we've seen his performance at the UN General Assembly, where he did talk about the danger of Iran and how close it is to that red line, basically, where we're getting to the point of no return. So, Mr. Abidi, let's start with you, and this will be our conclusion also. While you answer the questions, try to tell us in one line or two what your solution will be to either get some relief of that situation or even resolve it altogether. Mr. Abidi.
Merci beaucoup. D'abord, une chose brièvement, une question intéressante sur le régime démocratique au nom d'Iraniens, s'il contribue au changement d'attitude. Il y a une chose qu'on apprend aux étudiants de sciences politiques toujours, c'est que ce qui motive la politique étrangère d'une grande puissance, ce n'est pas votre comportement interne, mais surtout votre conduite externe. Si votre conduite externe est bien sûr se contredit avec la politique étrangère, c'est là qu'il y a une intervention. Et je pense que ce qui est important pour les Américains, c'est surtout la conduite de la politique étrangère iranienne qui motive et qui dicte même l'attitude américaine. Deuxième question importante qui a été posée sur Israël. Il y a un journal libanais, journaliste, qui a fait un papier hier très intéressant. Il a dit l'opération israélienne à Gaza, ça s'appelle bourrage des urnes. Il y a un autre journaliste qui a dit c'est une opération bureau de vote, pour dire qu'en effet, il y a un lien très étroit entre les élections qui se profilent le 22 janvier, je crois, et l'opération de Gaza, en sachant bien sûr que Israël, comme vous le savez tous, s'entretient avec un climat de tension permanente dans la région. Tout le monde le sait, Obama n'était pas le candidat favori du cabinet israélien, c'est plutôt Romney. Mais malgré ça, les deux vont quand même travailler ensemble. Je pense que cette opération, c'est vrai, va servir le Likoud, va servir Benjamin Netanyahou. Et on a bien vu, la réaction de toute la classe politique israélienne était bien sûr unanime quant au tempo et même à la force de cette frappe israélienne. Dernière réponse concernant comment peut-il faire, qu'est-ce qu'il faudrait faire. Moi, je pense qu'il y a un problème tout le monde a peur de l'autre. Les Iraniens ont peur, et à raison, parce que l'Occident et les pays du Golfe ont soutenu un effort de guerre contre les Iraniens lors de la guerre avec l'Irak. Et depuis, les Iraniens ont une conviction que s'ils veulent être en sécurité, il faut absolument qu'ils arrivent à développer leur programme nucléaire. Jusqu'à la bombe ou non, personne ne pourra nous répondre. Deuxième élément important, c'est bien entendu les mesures de confiance. Aujourd'hui, les pays du Golfe ont peur, les Iraniens ont peur aussi de ce qui va se passer dans la région, et bien sûr Israël a peur à ce que l'Iranien se dote de l'arme nucléaire. On arrive comment? Je crois que c'est la première chose, c'est les mesures de confiance. Aujourd'hui, on ne se parle pas, et si on se parle, c'est seulement dans des dossiers. Moi, je suis sidéré de savoir que les Iraniens et les Américains se réunissent, ça a été dit, dans les réunions concernant la sécurité en Irak, mais aussi en Afghanistan. Et les Iraniens ont rendu des services énormes aux Américains dans l'intervention en Irak en Iranien. Pourquoi ne pas élargir encore ces mesures de confiance entre les deux pays? Je parle bien sûr des États-Unis et de l'Iran, et intensifier cette dynamique de négociation pour éviter la guerre, qui sera, à mon avis, une mauvaise option pour tout le monde. Merci.
Dr. Gard, you want to take it from here, answer the questions that were asked to you, and give us your conclusion, your way out of this.
Okay, I'll try to be very brief. Are we interested in negotiations? I do not think the Bush administration was, as I said. I do believe that President Obama has emphasized the necessity for cooperation with other nations and genuine negotiations, and I believe he will attempt to pursue them. The red line in Iran, as drawn by Netanyahu, notice that Iran took half of its enriched uranium up to 20% and converted it into fuel rods, and that is what enabled Netanyahu to say, well, we have at least until next year now before it's necessary to attack. So it gives us some breathing room for those negotiations. Also, one should note that the Israeli public, the majority opposes a unilateral attack by Israel on Iran because of the consequences that I think have been described adequately. Finally, the future. I do believe there is a genuine interest on the part of Iran and the United States to achieve a mutually agreeable and beneficial outcome. Iran has submitted through intermediaries 3 times, of which I am aware, a proposal for a broad agreement on settling the issues between the 2 countries. After 9/11, there were thousands of candles in Tehran demonstrating sympathy with the victims in New York of the 9/11 attack. The Iranians cooperated with our ambassador, Jim Dobbins, who was then in Afghanistan, and helped us get agreement from the Northern Alliance on concessions that enabled us to put in the Karzai interim government. What did we do in response? We named Iran a charter member of the Axis of Evil. That, of course, sticks in the craw of Iran, and understandably so. I do believe that there is sufficient mutual interest to achieve an agreement and that Iran can be dissuaded from developing nuclear weapons.
Thank you, Monsieur Giraud.
Oui, je voudrais, juste pour terminer, répondre à la question qui a été posée sur le Conseil de sécurité. Premièrement, pour dire, ce n'est pas parce que le Maroc est le seul pays arabe à être actuellement au Conseil de sécurité, il représente les pays arabes de façon extrêmement efficace, extrêmement brillante, extrêmement active, extrêmement positive. Deuxièmement, vous avez raison de souligner que la structure actuelle du Conseil de sécurité, qui reflète les conditions de sa création, les conditions qui prévalaient à la fin de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, mérite d'être revisitée. C'est la position de mon pays, et vous connaissez peut-être les idées qui sont les nôtres sur la meilleure représentativité du monde d'aujourd'hui au sein du Conseil de sécurité. C'est un processus extrêmement complexe, puisque ce sont des équilibres extrêmement délicats, mais mon pays est en faveur d'une meilleure représentativité du Conseil de sécurité.
All right, I want to go to Dr. Al-Faraj first and conclude with you, Dr. Mousavian. I know that we have a film that we want to show. Okay. Actually, because of the film, I think we need to run the film now and run just a portion of it because we're running out of time. And so let's do that now, Dr. Faraj. If we have the video, I want that to play, and you tell us a little bit about your vision, so that Dr. Mousavian can give us a conclusion of all the other ideas and a way to move forward. So if we have the video, you can go ahead and play it.
I think what I'm trying to show to you here is that our concern is different. I mean, I was expecting actually a question from the younger part of the audience about what is in the future ahead. And basically, this is what we ought to think about, the future, for us and for the Iranians. Bear in mind that the security of the Gulf is very important for the development of the whole Arab world, the whole Arab world. Now, what we are showing now here is, if you were in Iran, what is the future? What would the future look like to you if you were sitting in Iran? Here we're talking about all the options available to us for cooperation with Iran. We put it together under the rubric of the Silk City. So it's a city that ought to link Iran again in world trade, not to really put sanctions on Iran. The sanction stage ought to be, crossed into a future. Now this is being actually built now. It is not a futuristic thing. No, it is being built now in Kuwait since 2006. If you were there, we're talking about a harbor. When we talk about Bubiyan Island, which we fought with Iraq over. We do not want to fight again. We cannot bear any more war. If you look at it, this is Iraq from 1001 Night. The tower is also 1001 Night, but this is a center, a financial center of business, because what we excel is not to have just national ministers of finance. This is if you learn in Iran, you will see, this is the perspective. You see the other part, the Arab part. Are they adversaries in war or are they partners? We want to push the continent away from Iran. So we have to show Iran actually that there is something in the future. We ought to cooperate. Bear in mind that in strategy you have two C's. It's either conflict or cooperation. If we do not build cooperation, we'll end up with conflict. And therefore the solution is for us, whatever my colleagues have said, what I am saying is that let's think of the crisis now, but also let's build for the future. If you look at that, we're talking about, transportation, we talk about railways that link Iran through the Bobian Island and link Iraq. It is obviously an option for us in Kuwait and the GCC that if Iran is not interested in this, that we'll lift, we shift to left and we go towards the Arab-Israeli conflict area, and from that to Turkey, and from Turkey into the great trade, the old trade route called the Silk Road. But we'd rather have Iran and Iraq with us. The option now is before the Iranian leadership. It's either they think of their future generations, or they think of modality, which is to have or not to have a nuclear program. Thank you.
This is a very ambitious project, obviously. We've heard Dr. Mousavian, all the different possibilities. Wrap it up for us. Tell us from everything we've heard, where we go from here, your vision and also your recommendations.
The first, I believe, the only sustainable long-term solution is WMD free zone in the Middle East. Iran proposed nuclear weapon-free zone in 1970. All regional countries, Middle Eastern countries, they have supported. Egypt proposed WMD-free zone in mid-1990s. Iran supported. All the countries, they have supported. The only problem everyone knows is Israel, which is not ready because they have nuclear weapon and they are not going to give it up. Therefore, I would invite P5+1 to take serious steps as the best long-term solution for all countries in the Middle East. A region without nuclear weapon, chemical weapon, biological weapon. The second issue, I agree with Mr. Giro that the nuclear issue should be discussed and agreed between Iran and P5+1. But I believe in parallel, we need a direct talks between Iran and the US. Without a direct talk between Iran and the US, not on nuclear issue. Nuclear issue, I believe, should be discussed between P5+1 and Iran. But there are a lot of issues beyond nuclear issue between Iran and the US that they should go for a comprehensive talk, broader issues. Security, energy, a lot of issues. The third issue, I completely agree with my brother Sami. Ultimately, Iran, GCC, and Iraq, they should establish a regional cooperation system in the Persian Gulf for security, political, economic, cultural relations and cooperations. The model Europeans they have can be exactly implemented with a little bit modification about the people in the region, GCC and Iran and Iraq. And my fourth point is about the nuclear issue, how we can get to a solution. Fortunately, President Obama is re-elected. Everyone expects a breakthrough or a step forward. We have a P5 directors meeting 21st of November, how to deal with the case. And we are fortunate we have Mr. Giro here. If there is what I propose to this meeting is realistic, he can take it to the meeting 21st, and then I'm sure we would have a breakthrough. To present Iranians in the next meeting a list of measures for transparency they require Iran. The maximum level of transparency and cooperation they expect Iran to have with IAEA. If this is implementation of additional protocol, if this is implementation of subsidiary arrangement code 3.1, if they expect Iran to sign an agreement with the IAEA to address possible military dimension issues, which would require Iran to give access to the IAEA beyond additional protocol, a list of transparency measures and cooperation measures. Second, to present Iran a list ensuring no breakout, because this is the second concern. The countries in the region, P5+1, specifically Europe and US, they have breakout possibility. They can present Iran a list, for example, asking Iran to limit its enrichment below 5%. As long as Iran is doing enrichment below 5%, there is no threat for breakout capability. I proposed in annual conference of arms control in Washington in June a second initiative, Zero Stockpile Initiative. A committee between P5+1 and Iran, they can sit together and agree the real consumption Iran has and needs for enriched uranium domestically. Beyond, in order to be sure Iran is not going to use this stockpile for nuclear weapon, either Iran would export it or Iran would convert it to fuel rods. In this way, Iran would maintain always a zero stockpile status quo. If the P5+1 presents these two lists of transparency and breakout, then at the same time, within a package, they should recognize the rights of Iran for enrichment, like other members of NPT, and to be ready to lift the sanctions gradually. These all three should come within a package to be implemented step by step, and in each step, each side should take a proportionate reciprocation. And if P5+1 presents such a package, I'm over 90% confident Iran would accept it. In this way, Iran would remain forever non-nuclear weapon state, and the issue would be resolved peacefully.
All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts? Did I forget anything that you wanted to mention? Anything that you'd like to say? Well, this has been a fascinating discussion for me. I hope that you enjoyed it just as much as I did. You've been a great audience. Thank you so much for staying with us until now. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you, gentlemen.